Hello, public opinion aficionados, and welcome to Rasmussen Reports. It feels like where we're at is maybe this war of attrition, this public opinion war of attrition where Donald Trump may have lost his honeymoon status. And so now maybe the press feels emboldened, like they can try and get away with more things. We're going to talk about Harry Enton is out there saying that Trump approval is plunging, using some really strong words and relying on a lot of statistics. So we're going to take a look and put that into perspective about where we really are. Because again, what I think they're trying to do is figure out a way, any way they can. They tried the stock market crash. Black Monday last week didn't work. They've tried literally everything. They're going to try new stuff and anything they can do to try and handicap Donald Trump's mandate because it threatens the establishment and they will not have that. The deep state will do whatever it can in order to avoid accountability. And what we're going to look at is not just Trump approval, because we've looked at that a lot. We're going to look at specifically this issue of the economy, which is bigger than the stock market. We talked about that, but it's also bigger than jobs. It's a concept that Americans have been dealing with for a very long time. It isn't a new thing that just got kicked off last week because of Liberation Day. And we're going to put that into perspective.
I would argue this is the worst set of polling data that Donald Trump has had in his entire second term as president, in part because the CBS News YouGov poll that came out yesterday has been one of his best. Let's first take a look at how folks are feeling about the state of the economy. Think that the economy is getting worse. Well, you don't have to be a mathematical genius to see the trend line on your screen, and it is getting worse. More folks are feeling the economy is going southward. Back in November, it was just 42% of Americans who said the economy is getting worse. You jump forward to February, 49%. You jump forward to March, 51%. Now look at this number, 53%. The clear majority of Americans think that the economy is getting worse. It's an 11-point jump from November to now. And of course, Donald Trump won the 2024 election because he promised to fix the economy. And yet, views of the economy are going down. The percentage who say it's getting worse is going up, Sarah.
I'll just add, I poll like every day. We put questions in the field every 3 days. We haven't had a chance to poll specifically this kind of question about the economy. I think that they decided to make this particular question a set piece for their Trump 2.0 coverage. And in my opinion, that's because they planned for one of their biggest weapons to be their use of the mainstream media to confuse people, to conflate economic issues. Because I'll be honest with you, on some topics, the American voter is a little squishy, and economics is one of them.
Okay, so usually the former administration actually is responsible for the economy, especially in the first couple of years of the new presidency. So who are people blaming for this?
This, to me, is a very interesting trend line that we're seeing develop over the last few months. All right, so of course, Joe Biden was the last president. Donald Trump is the current president. Donald Trump wants to say, don't blame me if you're upset with the state of the economy. Blame the other guy. I don't think Americans are buying what he's selling at this particular point, at least anymore. More responsible for the economic state. They asked about inflation back in March. Look at this, 38% said. Notice
he's cherry picking two different questions. These are two different questions. Inflation and economy are not necessarily the same thing. Depends on the subtext.
Joe Biden, 34% said Donald Trump. But look at where we are this month when they asked about the general state of the economy. Look at how much higher the Trump number is, 54%. The Joe Biden percentage drops through the floor at 21%. So this idea that Donald Trump will try to sell to the American public, is trying to sell to the American public, is that it's the other guy. It's not me. It's that other guy, that old guy, Joe Biden. No longer is this being, the American public is no longer buying this set of arguments like they were back in March. And of course, what is so important here? We have had the tariff war in the last month.
This is another false dichotomy. He's like trying to compare Trump's ownership of the economy to Biden's. Here's the thing. Americans had written off Biden. Like over 60% thought it was a puppet presidency. 68% wanted him to get a mental health test going all the way back to like, I think it was January of 22. He like resigned his candidacy back in July. He hasn't been on the world stage. Kamala Harris has taken over as the Democrat frontrunner. Nobody cares about Biden. That's part of it. And I'll tell you the reason that the 38 was there for Biden is because Biden owns the inflation issue. this isn't Trump owning the economy now. It's Biden owning the inflation then, but whatever.
What's going on? I believe that a massive shift is occurring because Americans are seeing what's happening on their television screens. They are seeing what's happening in the stock market. They're seeing what's happening in the bond market. One day, Donald Trump says one thing about the tariff war. The next day, he says another thing. One day, one of his advisors says one thing. The next day, that same.
So they don't like the chaos.
And all of a sudden, Americans are picking up on this. And this idea that Donald Trump is trying to sell, that you can blame Joe Biden. Look at this again. This percentage, 54 to 21. A clear majority now are blaming Donald Trump for the state of the economy, not Joe Biden.
It's clear they're literally not buying it. All right, so how
nice little jab there. Unbelievable.
The uncertainty, the back and forth, the flip-flopping, how is that affecting his overarching?
Oh, she used the flip-flop term.
I think this is so important, right? We've been talking about the economy, right? We talked about it last week. We spoke about it the week before. This has been the #1 story of the Trump presidency. And I made you viewers a promise.
I don't know if that's the case.
If prices go up and voters' thoughts on the economy go down, that would bring Donald Trump's approval rating down with him. That was the promise I made. And let's take a look at whether or not that's actually occurring, because that's the whole.
Oh, boy. Here it is.
Linked, who really cares, right? Except for our 401ks. Trump's net approval rating. Look at this. It's a huge slide in it. In early February, it was plus 6 points. Then you go to late February, plus 2 points. Then you go to March, it's even. And look at this massive jump from late March to now, minus 6 points. That's a 6-point drop in less than a month. And why is that occurring? It is because of the tariff war. The voters are punishing Donald Trump in one of his best polls, which now even that best poll is a negative poll for Donald Trump.
Your promise came true, but I have the feeling you would not have done this if your promise was completely wrong.
I get to choose my own segments here, aside.
Now, you might notice that he gets to choose his own segments. I don't know how much of that is true. You got to be like schizophrenic to follow this guy. It's like you get whiplash. Just last week, I think the terms he used was that Trump was a soaring eagle, accomplishing more than any other president and setting a new paradigm in the way a president is able to get things done. Now we're talking about a historic plunge in Trump approval, 12 points, catastrophic, all predicated on the market. That appears to be the weapon they're going to use because they do reach people. People are really, honestly, quite confounded, I think, by the economy. They conflate a lot of things. The headlines about stock market plunges, even though most people don't own stocks, does get through to these people, and they're going to keep hammering it. And I think it really shows like where this is coming from. They talk about chaos over and over again, because let's just look at the S&P. Like let's look at the S&P 500. It's down 4 points on the month. 4 points. It did a 9-point round trip. In the grand scheme of things, this is absolutely nothing. This is literally nothing. In fact, it looks like it's stabilizing. VIX is already down to 30. Not a lot's changed except for tariffs with China. Now, I can understand why they don't like Donald Trump's aggressive walking back and launching all the tariffs at once and then scaling back. Now, I talked about this before. I think Trump's an intuitive leader. He makes decisions based on limited information, and if things change, he'll make a new decision. And what I think happened is that they put tariffs on everybody and the world started to puke. They started selling U.S. treasuries and yields started to go up, especially the 10-year. And Donald Trump, for whatever reason, said, hey, maybe that's not a right thing. Maybe that's not good. And so they backed off. Now, who was selling those treasuries? Probably China, although they have less than they did before, ostensibly under $800 billion. But other countries as well. I guess Europe probably didn't like the fact that they just got socked with a bunch of tariffs too. They've been eating our bonds, as has Japan. But obviously they have levers and they decided to use them. Although it's been accused, I've seen by Zero Hedge, that Luxembourg and whatnot, Liechtenstein or wherever, have maybe another couple $100 billion of Chinese held U.S. treasuries, but whatever. Yields went back down today. So what that means, I think, is that when you have chaos in the stock market, people flee to safety, buying U.S. treasuries. It's a safe haven. China selling 100 billion in treasuries doesn't change that. And so they're fighting the market. But let's talk about where we have Donald Trump right now. Here's his approval rating. This is the snapshot. I took the little charts from our our website, and you can see in the grand scheme of things, he like what is that? I mean, it's 50, right? He's been like, he got to 51, 52. He got down to 50 in the first 2 weeks of his term. And then he got up a little bit. I think this was probably based on like Doge, some great headlines about people being confirmed, stuff like that. But in the, we're talking essentially what last week was a couple point variation. He got down to 47%. So he's at 48% right now. He's down a few points, going back up. It's been pretty stable at 48%. This is mountain out of a molehill, to be honest with you. Again, say this over and over again. Biden was about a 44% president, like total, like including the honeymoons and all the good times and the bad. 44% president. Donald Trump's been a 50% president so far, maybe 51. Now, you'll also notice that he came in at 56 and he got down to 47. So that's down 9 points, back up a point. Pretty similar to the CBS 12-point drop. And where he's taken it, I guess, is in the approval index here. Strongly approve minus strongly disapprove. He's underwater. Like Joe Biden spent most of his term between -20 and -30. 48% approval, 50% disapprove. But the big number is that right track is back up to 45%. That is really high. And it would not be this high if this isn't what people voted for. They, I think, understood that chaos was part of the Trump package. Republican approval is drifting back up. Independent approval is back to only Trump -3. So it was a response bias. And let's see, when did CBS actually poll? When was that -6 from CBS? And I'll tell you, they are a lot more accurate than they used to be. Turns out all it takes is a $20 billion lawsuit from the Trump administration, campaign rather. But isn't it really grand that CNN would pick the CBS number, which is one of the lower ones here, a day after Donald Trump absolutely roasted them on a Truth Social post because of how disingenuous their 60-minute coverage has been. So Harvard Harris has Donald Trump up +2, 48% to 46%. And I'm pretty sure CBS went into the field now. Look at these dates. April 8th to April 11th. That was like peak stock market chaos. They were polling right in the middle of it. That's when we had Trump at 47 too. So their number wasn't that different than ours. I bet you if they went into the field right now, they'd probably get a Trump -3 or -2, but they're not going to. And CNN next week will just cherry pick somebody else. Maybe The Economist, who also uses YouGov, just like CBS. Remember, everybody is consolidating here. And the YouGov is one of those proprietary panels that only has, I don't know how many people, but it's the same people over and over again. But let's see. Let's look at the industry and not just CBS. We have Trump coming in at +6, and now he's underwater, call it 4. So a 10-point drop. Well, my numbers showed a 9-point drop. Let's see. Where does that put us? In the Trump first term, he entered in, what is this? 0, net +0, 6 points worse. They really hated Trump back then. I actually had Trump come into his first term very similar to the second term, but whatever. They really sandbagged him back then. But then fast forward to the middle of April, and he's underwater 10 points. Interesting. So he lost 10 points at this point in this term. He lost 10 points at this point in last term. Like who else? Who else lost 10 points? Oh, look at Biden approval. He comes in at, this is like, I hate to use the word. No, I don't hate to use this word. This is retarded. Joe Biden's approval was never this high. He came in at under 55 in our numbers. And our disapprove was way higher than this, in the mid 40s. So this is him +20. +20. Donald Trump would have beat him this time out, and Donald Trump comes out of the gate at +6 right now. You see the industry just absolutely despises Donald Trump. But they had him at +20, and then fast forward to like middle of April, and it's what's that? It's a little less than plus 12. So he lost 8 points. And I'll tell you, people were really happy here. Right direction was high because all the COVID measures were rolling off. And not long after that, after this spring, he immediately starts plunging too. So this is normal. People lose the sugar high. That's what happens. It's absolutely normal. And I can tell you there's some other reasons that I'm very suspicious about this CBS poll. Now, here's the story. Trump tariff plans bring concern about prices, financial impact, but the GOP base sees jobs long term. Well, yeah. Let's look at some of these breakdowns here. Get out of here. Impact of new tariffs on prices. Oh, I don't like how they did this. Short term, long term. 48% think it's going to increase prices long term. This isn't useful to me without the party breakdowns. Impact of new tariffs on U.S. economy. 42% say it's going to make it worse long term. 34% make it better. So 34%, 57% say it's going to have no impact on the economy or make it better. The impact of tariffs on manufacturing jobs will add jobs. Spoiler alert, we talked about this Friday. Jobs are what people want, not the stock market. It's over, it's a little under a 3-to-1 margin. It was like 63% to, I forget. We'll pull it up in a little bit. Impact of tariffs on manufacturing jobs. The U.S. will add jobs. 85% of Republicans, like Donald Trump's been talking about it for a really long time. But independents also 43% to 28%. Democrats are upside down here. Only 42% say it's going to lose jobs. Tariffs and trade, Trump's goal versus Trump's approach. They like it, 51% his goal. And that's, exactly what his margin was in the election. Oh, they don't like his approach. Where's the other issue they had? Trade policies, tariffs, jobs, policies, worse off, better off. We'll look at our numbers because I don't trust this because of, where is it? The immigration one. Is it not in here? Well, whatever. They had Trump even on immigration. I'm not digging through the crosstabs tonight on this one. They had Trump even on the issue of immigration. And I can tell you that that is not where he's at because people voted for him because of the border crackdown. And they're really happy. And so, again, I think this is one of the situations where maybe their approval isn't that off and it was cherry picked to be at the absolute worst time for Donald Trump. But this is one of those panels that perennially, even if the top line is right, the fundamentals, the internals, the Trump approval, the Trump on the issues, like all of that stuff is always too far left. And we've covered it like time and time again. Yeah, we don't have to get into this, but this is a zero hedge coverage of out of control. CBS's 60 Minutes should lose their license. And so here's the thing. If you're CNN and you're picking a poll and you're trying to like do the best job for your viewers, like maybe not put one that has a conflict of interest here. I just don't get it. All right, let's talk the economy, though, because I dug some stuff up. We're going to go into crosstabs now. And I went back to 22 because what I wanted to show you is that the economy has been the problem for the entire Biden administration. And so they can ask the question about Biden now, and people will be like, yeah, whatever, Trump's president. But the question is, why did they vote for Trump? What did they think they were going to get? And what is Trump going to give them? And they think a better economy. Is the U.S. economy currently in a recession? Keep in mind, they're trying another psychological operation to convince everybody that Trump is bringing a recession. And I don't think voters know or care about the actual definition, which is 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth. I don't know if that really affects people that much, to be honest with you, but I'll tell you, it freaks out a lot of people in the financial markets. But back in 2022, is the U.S. economy currently in a recession? 62% said yes. Only 23% said no. Everybody agreed across age, gender, race, and 83% of Republicans, even a plurality of Democrats, 47%, independents, 57% to 24%. This is like felt recession. This is the reality on the streets. They do not care about how whoever whoever calculates it, I forget. They don't care. How important will economic issues be in this year's congressional election? 66%, very important, really high number. 25%, somewhat important. That's over 90%. It's basically everybody, except less Democrats. Oh, the economy doesn't matter. 55%, very important. Oh, no, don't worry about that. It's fine. We don't need the economy to be good in order to pick a president to elect. You agree or disagree with this statement? Democrats inherited an economy that was primed for a historic comeback and promptly ran it straight into the ground. Strong statement. 59% agree, 45% strongly, 27% disagree. So, yeah, again, this is like 3 years ago. Tell me again how Trump owns the economy. Here we're fast forwarding to 2023. Over the past year, has the U.S. economy gotten better or worse? 56% worse, 29% better. Actually, 50% of Democrats thought that Joe Biden was making the economy better, not because they all own stocks, but because they all own, they all view legacy media outlets who are, mouthpieces for the establishment. It's all billionaires. It's all the financial industry. It's all the interests offshoring to China. 75% of Republicans said worse, but if you don't believe the Republicans, look at the independents. 62% said worse, only 21% said better. Again, people say that Kamala Harris was a bad candidate, but this is what she had to work with. 3-1 independents say that Joe Biden has made the economy worse. And this is only 1 year out, a little over 1 year out from the election. She had a bad hand. I mean, obviously she sucked as a candidate, but she had a bad hand. How do you rate the way President Biden is handling economic issues? 37%. Excellent or good. Keep that in your mind. 21% excellent. Independents, 15% excellent. 11% good. 26%. So 1 in 4 independents. Really low numbers. How important will economic issues be in the presidential election? Even higher numbers now, 93%, 71%, very important. So it kept getting worse and worse. Now you have distrust about, okay, you're going to tell us that the economy is in a recession. The Federal Bureau of Labor Statistics has admitted that it previously overestimated the number of new jobs created in the past year, which is more likely that it was an honest mistake or that it was politically motivated. A majority of U.S. likely voters, not even a year ago, said that it was politically motivated. 53%, only 1 in 3 said an honest mistake. So they don't care about your economic indicators. They think you're lying to them for political reasons. Look at Democrats. 31% of Democrats said the BLS was lying under Biden's administration. 72% of Republicans and independents, 58% to 29%, overwhelmingly. Zero trust in the government. How likely is it that the revised job estimate signals that the U.S. economy is headed into a recession? 59%, almost 60% say it's at least somewhat likely. 31% say very likely. I mean, voters had a recession. Their elite financial bettors just didn't deem it necessary to tell them. Thinking about the presidential election, which candidate do you trust more to handle the economy? Donald Trump, 52% to 44%. Again, I think it's a blip. I think it was a squishy target that they manipulated. We'll have to see if there are going to be more of these because China's probably got some tricks up the sleeve that's going to play. But if Donald Trump starts unveiling these really positive trade deals, maybe it won't be a thing. I don't know. But here we go. Here's some more stuff. How do you rate the way President Trump is handling the economy? From last month, 48%, 30% excellent, 18% good. That's higher by 11 points than Joe Biden. And already Trump was talking tariffs, and there was, so this wasn't exactly, it's not exactly at the height, right? This wasn't Liberation Day, but there's been some swings. The market's been back and forth. It's been stagnating. So I guess there's a feel of recession coming. People have been talking about it, but again, 48% excellent or good. Only 40% say poor. What was poor for Joe Biden? 51%. A majority of likely voters, randomly sampled in the middle of Biden's term, 51% said he did a poor job on the economy. Is President Trump's economic policy better or worse than Biden's? Better 47%, 40% worse +7. So this wasn't like a flash in the pan. Donald Trump's built his supporters. The voters fundamentally trust the components of his economic plan. Bring back jobs, reshore manufacturing, tax cuts, spur economic growth, level the playing field, maybe redistribute wealth. I think that's what they're here for. And a little bit of fear about the stock market and a whole bunch of people yelling at him about the chaos, it's not going to do it. This is where they're coming from. Are you better off than you were 4 years ago? 56% say no. That's really bad. 40% say they are better, but the numbers got even lower the next time we asked it. And again, this is down from, a decade or two ago. The number of people who said they were better off than they were 4 years ago, much higher. When did it flip? After the great financial crisis. The wealth and power got concentrated. Republicans and Democrats worked together to screw over the little guy to cap off decades of globalization. And then we talked about this. I mean, approve or disapprove of Donald Trump's tariff policies. 43% still approve, but 52% disapprove. So he's under 9 points with the tariff policies. But again, people don't understand tariffs. And 64% of people think it's likely we're going to have a recession directly because of tariffs in a poll where Donald Trump has a 48% approval rating. That's because 40% of the people that approve of Trump are like, yeah, we're going to get a recession. We're going to get a recession. And we had in another poll, 80% of Trump voters said specifically, yes, this is what I voted for. So they're going to stick with him. Which is more important, keeping a strong stock market for investors, 21%, creating more jobs for the American worker, 63%, 3-1 margin. So again, why did his numbers take a hit? I don't think it's that many people changing their mind. I really don't. I think it's response bias. I think it's people getting pissed. Oh, hands off. Oh, that's their new call to arms. Hands off my economy, hands off my pink pussy hat, whatever, right? That's what they're running with mentally, that they want Donald Trump to stop. They want somebody to stop him. They want a judge to step in. They want some crazy guy to throw a Molotov cocktail or something, right? I don't know. But it's not going to stop. And people are going to come back. The people, let me rephrase that. The people who are now answering the polls because they're super mad at Donald Trump will go away again. And I don't think they're representative of the voting public. If you've learned something, please follow us at rasmussenreports.com, Rasmussen_poll at Twitter. Follow us on YouTube. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Mark_R_Mitchell at Twitter. And thanks for watching.